You've probably heard of the Protestant work ethic, right? This idea that hard work and making money were signs that you were one of God's chosen, a belief that really helped kickstart capitalism in the West. But that begs a really interesting question. How did Japan, a country without that specific Christian background, end up with one of the most famously intense work ethics on the entire planet?
So, in the West, the motivation was pretty clear. Your job was a divine calling, a way to prove you were destined for salvation. But in Japan, the puzzle was totally different. How could a regular person, a farmer, a craftsman, a merchant, find something truly sacred in the daily grind of their work? That's the question we're going to get to the bottom of in this explainer. And to get to that answer, we need to travel back in time, back to pre-modern Japan, where a really serious spiritual problem was on the minds of almost everyone who worked for a living.
You see, for centuries, the main Buddhist teaching was that the real world, with all its worries about work and family, was basically a distraction. If you wanted to reach true enlightenment, you had to become a monk. You had to leave it all behind. Well, that created a massive problem, didn't it? If you have to work to feed your family, does that just mean you're spiritually doomed?
And this quote right here, from a farmer talking to a monk, just cuts right to the chase. It's so real and so desperate. Hey, you're telling me to do all this practice, but I don't have time. I have to work. So what am I supposed to do? For millions of people, this wasn't some abstract debate. This was the central, agonizing problem of their entire lives.
So who is going to solve this? Well, the first person to come up with a truly revolutionary answer wasn't some academic in a temple. He was a man who understood duty and conflict better than almost anyone, a former samurai warrior named Suzuki Shosan.
Shosan had traded in his sword for a monk's robes, and he looked at this dilemma and he came up with an idea so radical, it basically flipped Japanese spirituality on its head. So what was this incredible solution? This one sentence changed everything. Nane no jigyo mo mina bukkyo nari. It means all work is Buddhist practice. He didn't just say your job was acceptable, he said your job is the path. This wasn't just a new idea, it was a complete and total paradigm shift. So how did he figure that? Well, his logic was actually really simple and elegant. He argued that when you are working your tail off, when you're completely focused on the task at hand, your mind is empty. There's no room for all those distracting worldly desires that Buddhism tells you to avoid. So that hard work itself becomes a kind of training, a form of asceticism. And the conclusion? Your daily job isn't getting in the way of enlightenment, it is your ticket there.
Think about how revolutionary this was. It basically took enlightenment out of the monastery and made it available to everyone. You didn't have to leave the world to be saved anymore. You could find it right there, in the rice paddies and the blacksmith's shop. He created this idea of active asceticism, right in the middle of everyday life.
Okay, so Shosan lit the fuse with this fiery, passionate religious idea. But it took another brilliant mind, a man named Ashita Beigan, to take that explosion and shape it into a practical philosophy that could spread to everyone in a rapidly changing Japan. And when you put these two men side by side, the difference is fascinating. Shosan was a samurai speaking to other samurai. His ideas were rooted in deep Buddhist faith, and the goal was personal salvation. Baigan, on the other hand, was a commoner, and he was talking to the growing merchant class. He took Shosan's core idea but stripped it of its intense religiousness, turning it into a logical, almost secular system that was all about creating a harmonious society. Baigan started a whole movement called Shingaku, which you could translate as heart learning. And it was just genius. He blended ideas from Confucianism and Buddhism to create a super practical, ethical playbook for how to live a good life no matter who you were, a lord, a farmer, or a shopkeeper.
And this quote really gets to the heart of it. Baigan said, "Look, it doesn't matter what your job is. The core principle for living a moral life is the same for everybody. A samurai's duty to his lord, a farmer's duty to his field, a merchant's duty to his customers." He argued they were all just different expressions of the very same righteous path.
Now, this was a huge deal for merchants who, in the traditional social structure, were way down at the bottom. Baigan completely reframed their work. He said that when you engage in commerce honestly, when you pursue profit fairly, you're not being greedy. You're actually performing a vital service that helps society run smoothly. Your work wasn't just a job, it was a moral duty. So, when you put the ideas of Shogo Shan and Baigan together, what you get is more than just a philosophy. You get the actual blueprint for a whole new social ethos, a spirit that would go on to define Japanese society for centuries. And this new spirit was made of a few key ingredients. First, work wasn't just about earning a paycheck.
It became a sacred duty. Because of that, things like diligence, discipline, and being frugal were seen as top-tier virtues. The pursuit of profit, as long as it was honest, was now completely justified. And maybe most importantly, the ultimate goal of all this hard work was social harmony, putting the group's well-being way ahead of any one person's ambition.
So here we are at the main point. Japan created a mindset that was, for all intents and purposes, functionally equivalent to the Protestant work ethic. It resulted in a culture totally devoted to hard, ascetic work. But, and this is the amazing part, it got there on its own terms, through its own unique path, by reinterpreting Buddhist and Confucian thought, not Christian theology.
But there's one last critical difference we have to talk about. In the West, the Protestant ethic often fueled revolutions that challenged the old kings and aristocrats. In Japan, this new ethic did the exact opposite. Because the highest goal was social harmony, it encouraged everyone to find meaning by doing their job to the best of their ability within the existing system, which ended up making that social structure even stronger and more stable.
And that, of course, leaves us with one big question to think about. This powerful spirit, born way back in the 17th century, prized collective harmony and total dedication to your role inside a system. So when you look at Japan today, its corporate culture, its social norms, how much of that centuries-old spirit do you think is still shaping things? That's definitely something worth mulling over.